Twice a year, interior designers, makers, manufacturers, and press come together at High Point Market, North Carolina, to share new products. This market is just for the design industry, but months later, the items will appear in stores and eventually in businesses, hotels, and homes. I'm here to talk about sustainable materials and practices and how important they are for the earth and for people. High Point Market is the largest trade show in the US and potentially globally because it attracts clients from all over the world. About 80,000 visitors per year. Designer collaborations with furniture launchers, new lines and new collections of furnishings, and of course plenty of parties because we're here all together to be together and celebrate our industry. I was invited to speak on panels as well as demonstrate how sustainable and circular materials and practices can be implemented in design.
The largest opportunity across the economy is in fact our industry. The furnishing industry and the housing industry, which is a massive contributor for carbon emissions. It is simply no longer true that there is a trade-off between sustainability and quality or beauty and elegance. I have been espousing this for quite some time in my own design practice and in my advocacy for a circular economy. But it is truer today than ever before. So, how does circularity fit in? The circular business model is not just a means of tackling the excessive and unsustainable consumption of natural resources, which is incredibly important. It is also a solution to climate change, as well as a huge economic opportunity for businesses. That is, you can call it a win-win-win.
We are a 163-year-old mill producing linen blends, and doing one thing very, very well. We are completely carbon neutral. We feel it's an innate part of our DNA. It's something that's extremely important for the future of the planet and for our organization's health, but also it's financially smart to do so.
The one thing that when I started the company, I was always curious where goods were coming from. And the one thing that we knew we were using a lot of was wood. So my first mission for my company and the sustainability side was to plant a tree for every piece of furniture that we made. And that was, 1991, so that's a long time ago. That was way before sustainability. Since then, we move along quite a bit the needle.
Sustainable materials are good for the earth and its citizens, but how do consumers know which products to invest in? And when it comes to furniture, fashion, and style, who establishes trends? Julie Smith-Vicenti has a finger on the pulse of the market.
I don't see a time in the near term where we aren't bombarded with scary headlines about the changes that are happening to our planet. So who establishes the sustainable trends that ultimately we're hoping make its way to the consumer, to the homeowner? Well, it begins with the designer making decisions about the materials they'll use. It begins with the company contracting with that designer and making a decision about where that product will be manufactured. It then carries on to the retailer seeing that new product at a trade show and making a decision one way or another about whether or not they believe that their customers will respond to that sustainable message, and as well as interior designers. If you imagine a consumer who's sitting in front of their laptop and they're about to click buy, or they're standing in a retail store and they're about to say, I want that one. With a small change to the conversation at that point of sale, I believe that we'll get consumers even more interested and more likely to choose the sustainable product. It's about conversation on the health attributes of sustainable furniture. That messaging can be as simple as, your child is going to set up their toys on this area rug. Wouldn't you like to know that this design has no harmful chemicals? You're going to be sitting at that dining room table and eating food off that dining room table. Wouldn't you like to know that the finish on the product that you've selected has no harmful VOCs? As an industry, we just need to be better storytellers. IMC is also very committed to conservation, and so they were one of the first trade show producers in home furnishings to start implementing water preservation technology in all of the public bathrooms. Now, what's next? And I think that IMC's educational programming this market really can help to sort of teach buyers and suppliers and manufacturers and interior designers how to take that next step.
In an activation program called Sustainable Stories, I designed a vignette that represents a huge step towards responsible sustainability and circularity in the design industry. My vignette is called the Salon de la Circularité, which is a lounge of circularity. So I partnered with different brands that all push the envelope with circularity in their supply chain. So today we have this vignette. Currently it's empty. We have 6 hours. So we start from zero, an empty trailer, and we have to design a lounge. So I have to get started, but my first problem is that nothing is here right now. Put them on the side because, the carpet needs to be laid first. The challenge was really, as things arrived a couple of hours later than what we planned, to really fix the back wall. The back wall was made of a very thin structure. It was a challenge to actually hang some of these 10 pounds, 20 pounds, beautiful wall art. Some of them are covers of barrels. We want to make no waste and minimal damage to what we are creating. This was the first challenge. And the second challenge was just working around time. So suddenly everybody turned up, delivering the sofa and the chair, and we had the rug, side tables, and the beautiful console made of chamcha wood. So it's just been amazing and really fast. I really designed for wellness and sustainability. What I do is really to emphasize how interiors should be circular, full of regenerative materials, so it really contributes to our health and wellness. The circular economy goes away from the take, make, and waste linear thinking, but it rather goes into take, use, reuse, recycle, upcycle, transform, and use it into a new product. Creative makers from all over bring their work to High Pond Market. One of my favorites is Mill Collective, a group of impeccable artisans who are focused on sustainability. Tell me about Mill Collective.
We are a collective of like-minded individuals with similar values, artists, creatives, makers, about 70 companies we have in our network so far. Thankfully, wellness is becoming increasingly more important for people. So they're looking for healthy interiors. They design and make the pieces here in the USA, sourcing sustainable materials, sometimes upcycled. They imagine how they can make their furniture pieces long-lasting, sustainable, healthy, sometimes multifunctional.
Does sustainability or circularity play a role in these choices?
We prefer designs with materials that can be reused, can be upcycled. Some of these pieces are considered modern heirlooms. Like we know now that not a lot of kids want to have their parents' old furniture. So these pieces will be reused, or in worst case scenario, the materials will be reused. Our makers are committed to creating good products that will not bring any health risks to your home. Natural finishes, certified hardwoods, their logistics and packaging materials. Not all of the companies are there yet, 100%, but it's a process. And because we have similar values, we're always reinforcing these practices.
Do you offer any guidance to artisans to implement more sustainable practices?
Anytime you get a few makers in the same room, they're sharing their techniques, their sources for purchasing reclaimed or certified hardwoods. So they're consistently improving on their techniques and processes.
Heirlooms, the special handmade items that are passed down for generations, are often discarded nowadays. And in India, that includes the beautiful garments called saris. Amy Fleury and her partners rescue these items and refashion them for today's homes.
Our product is sourced in India. My partners, they were visiting family, their mother and grandmother, happened upon a material, a quilt that has existed for a long time but still has a lot of potential, and reached out to me and said, "What do you think?" And I said, it's gorgeous, I agree. It was as simple as that. That was the start.
So speaking of your product, can you show us?
This is one of the quilts, and one side is very expressive. One side may be, well, a beautiful color, bright color. The other side,
Whoa.
a carnival, or like a
Love it, a carnival of colors.
carnival of colors. So the materials that make up the quilts as we buy them are layers and layers of retired saris. Over time, you might retire clothes. The mindset at the time that they were made was not to throw that material away, but to make something with it, because these are beautiful cottons, sometimes silks. Anywhere from 8 to 15 saris, hand stitch, 60 to 80 years ago. So we do go through and, pick these blankets and quilts in good condition already, but they have a lot of life left in them, strong enough to upholster with. If you unravel the edges just a little bit, you can see the layers. And that stitch is called a kantha stitch, which creates the durability, because when something is stitched that tightly, it's very hard to rupture, but we're talking over many, many decades. Some may be worn in places, and so when that area would wear out, somebody stitches a patch on top of that. It would be hard to replicate that kind of serendipity in the placement of the patches. We started to cut pillows, we call them pillow families, from the same quilt. This is a great example of one of the more time-worn. It kind of has a more textured, worn, vintage appeal. It's very soft. The sari underneath and the color from that one layer underneath is starting to show through. And give it another 100 years and you would see the other color of the next layer. If you look at it, there are thousands of stitches in that one piece of scrap that somebody put together by hand. We're mapping the quilts both in terms of their beauty, but also so that we have as little waste as possible. These are like fraternal twins, They're not exactly alike, but they're definitely from the same quilt. And we, again, try to be very sensitive in the mapping so that you can decorate easily with them. We have designers who are really focused on sustainable living, and that is the niche that they, carry through. It used to be if you bought pre-owned, you were trying to get a value. Now it's a point of pride. It's more like I'm buying something that has lasted all these years and is so beautiful, and now this company has made it even more beautiful. You have to consider A to Z, in how you will deliver it, and then what will they do with it after. When you think of how these things were made, of sitting together, sewing, sharing stories, that takes a lot of time and it takes people. And so I think about that, of like what you bring into your home, that there's so much that radiates from one pillow or one quilt. And especially the quilts, because when you wrap yourself in them, it's heavy, it's got that beautiful weight, but it just feels like a universal hug. I just don't know how you cannot sense the connection over time to things made by hand, by people, that were made well enough to continue for so long. You see and you feel the connection.
Leather is a sturdy, useful item that can last generations. It's also something that people think of an expensive luxury. But with a massive global beef industry that is only expected to grow, leather is abundant and needs to be kept out of landfills. Enter my friend, Sackett Wood, to turn waste into utility. Let's get into leather. Many people fall under a misconception that leather is not sustainable.
Leather is the original sustainable solution. Leather has been around since about fire. And the same thing that made leather essential to early humans is the same thing that makes it a luxury material today. And the fact that we can take something like this and convert it into something beautiful and luxurious and long-lasting that you can invest in over time, it's an important story to tell.
And I do think it's very important because you're basically taking waste out of a landfill and you are actually upcycling it.
The definition of leather is the skin of an animal that's been tanned. If something is called leather and it's a synthetic, it's not really leather. You hear things today about pineapple leather and other plant-based leather, and all those are fine. But what they don't do is take away that hide that's going to be available. And if you think about 285 million hides, landfilling those, it would be a real environmental catastrophe. It's important to us that the last hide that's available be used before you make something synthetic.
I'm inspired by your company's adaptability. What products do Moore & Giles specifically create for the interiors industry?
After being in the footwear business for 50 years after 1933, as that footwear business left, we branched out into upholstery leather. And really what the company evolved into is, I think, a design company that went out and made beautiful leathers from really artisan tanneries from all over the world. And we bring them into Lynchburg, Virginia, and warehouse them at 2 distribution centers. And so we are selling furniture manufacturers, designers and architects, residential designers, aviation designers, and then we have our own bag and accessory company. Everything you see in this room is pretty much a natural leather. We make leathers that you can sit in, that you can wear, and that you can walk in, and that you can carry. We spent a lot of our time in the tanneries working on that artistic side because there's just really endless possibilities with what you can do with the hide. It's really a way for us to express what we love about leather on really classic silhouettes on bags, accessories, and furniture.
What is your company's approach to waste management? And what is your biggest challenge?
The company is committed to both education and sustainability, and it's something that we have to invest in on a regular basis. We have someone leading it. We have a conservation team at the company that meets weekly to talk about different ways that we can improve. It's really an expectation on all of our employees' part to do what we can, and it's really basic stuff right now to just know what we can and cannot recycle. But we're also looking at ways to reduce our waste. One of the things that we have a lot of is scrap leather. We do try and sell our scrap by the pound to people who are making sort of crafts and keychains and different things. But we also are working with a company now who's figured out how to take our scraps and grind them up in a way to create a sort of a leather substrate that we'll be introducing in some of our finished goods. We have these sort of fiber blankets that are padded that come in with the leather. We've been throwing away, and we've found a nonprofit who can use them for making sleeping bags for refugees, Humane Society centers. We're taking our campus and planting natural grasses and shrubs that sort of have deep roots that create a carbon sink on our campus that reduce our carbon footprint. The most important tanning ingredient in leather is water. And most of these tanneries are in small towns with rivers coming through the town. We have a tanner in Germany who has done such a good job with his water effluent treatment that he has a holding pond that can release back into the river, and you can test the water 24/7 anytime you want. We've got a lot to do, but it's something that we're committed to for the long term. You have to be a good corporate citizen or you'll not be in business.
What is the future of the tanning industry?
There's been 2 ways of tanning in the history of mankind. Vegetable tanning, which uses the extracts of bark and trees like mimosa and chestnut. It's sort of the ancient way of tanning. It takes a long time to do. There's still great vegetable tanners all around the world that work that medium. The modern form of tanning is chrome tanning. Chrome is a mineral that really preserves the leather. Chrome tanning has been around since 1875. We've looked at alternative forms of tanning for quite some time. The one we've sort of settled on is olive tanning. And we met with a group from Germany, and they were looking at the olive leaves in the Mediterranean, which are abundant. They brewed it like a tea. There's enough of these leaves to tan 30 to 40% of the world's leather. Leather is really the original sustainable solution. We are completely controlled by the global demand for beef consumption. The farmers go to great lengths to raise the animals in good environments in an ethical manner. And our duty is to take those hides and use them in a way that you can create things that last for a lifetime.
So I'm just about done, and I'm just putting a few finishing touches. Really excited about tomorrow. Can't wait to show it to the world. I invited Cisco home, Lenzing, Libeco, Philips Collection, and Natural's Legacy, because they prioritize circularity and use certified healthy materials. I also invited Curie & Co. and of course Bill Collective, because they demonstrate transparency through their affiliations and accreditations. I am thrilled to be able to amplify the messages of conscious, forward-thinking brands. So we partnered and worked for a few months on creating a circular sofa and chair from Cisco Home. Some of the filling is made of tensile fibers, which are tree pulp fibers that are 100% recyclable. When people come to the Salon de la Circularité, I really want them to experience wellness, calm, a sense of really great comfort, and really by experiencing the space, feeling the textures, the colors. My design was inspired by nature, particularly the biodiversity of the ocean that I once witnessed while diving. The fluidity in water, textures, colors, and marine life inspired me to capture the physicality and emotions of nature and foster an indoor connection to the outside environment through the color palette and finishes. Materiality and texture are sensory experiences, not simply visual, and my space was a feast for the senses. Until next time, I am Laurence Carr, designing a more circular future.